flying back and forth, bleeding the truck.
Gotcha. Good morning, Mary Love. Big Island, Hawaii.
No, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
You're soft, but we can
Okay.
hear you.
Okay. Sky Bear. Hey, Sky Bear too. Woo! In the house. Great to see you all. Hi, Mark. Hi, Ariana. Hi,
Good morning.
everybody.
Hey, beautiful love. How are you?
Oh, just experiencing the aloha, don't you know?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's early for you, huh? 7 in the morning?
7 in the morning. I've got my coffee right here. I've already had some,
Nice.
so I'm mostly
Yikes.
present. I'm not 100% present, but I'm getting here.
Well, it's good we're not doing you one-on-one with things today, so we don't have to worry about presents so much.
That's right. That's right.
Kyle, sorry, this is like a family reunion for us here. So
I get it. That's great.
you can become one of the tribe. You know, you're halfway there.
Here we are. I'm in.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. You are in.
Join us.
And for those of you,
Listen.
Kyle's a wicked, amazing man. I really loved our conversation. So I had our interview with you and Dean and David, like last week about this time, or maybe something along those lines, and it was fun. It was you guys are the only ones we did with more than one.
Okay.
So I was going back through it last night and editing it, and it's like, oh my gosh, this was so much fun.
Did you have to bleep anything out or?
Of course.
Yeah.
You guys
Okay, good.
You guys wouldn't divulge your secret location, so I left that in there because it was just so funny as we were laughing about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was nice. That was fun.
Yeah, they've got secret, just for the rest of you, they got secret hiding or secret hiking places around Colorado that they don't divulge to anyone else. Not even me.
Yeah. Most of these places are hardly secret. They're just overrun, anymore, but still nice to get out there.
Well, I guess it's a few minutes past. Maybe this is what we're going to have, the 8 of us here. So I'm just recording this. This is just kind of to get us together here a little bit and to chat and just kind of see where we are and to kind of have many of our familiar faces in there. I guess Peg and Kyle, you two are kind of a little bit outside the group, although Peg, Ariana, and I know you. But yeah, so good morning and good afternoon. And it's kind of cool going across numerous time zones and areas, and this crazy thing called Zoom allows us to be able to do that. And it's been a lot of fun. I'm heading to Home Depot after this journey, or after this conversation here. So welcome all.
Heading to church, Home Depot.
Church.
For one more month.
That's right. The Home Depot is my church, but I'm going to work on her church. That's real. Kyle,
We had sprinkler
minister.
systems. We had sprinkler systems turn on through the whole neighborhood, and then we had that giant snow, and everybody's sprinkler systems broke, but ours because we were late.
See, who says
We didn't turn
procrastination
ours
doesn't
on
pay
yet.
off? Who says procrastination doesn't pay off? That's right. Well, let's go around because there's several of you who don't know each other with things. I just want to, just maybe take a couple minutes talking about your chapter and why you chose it real quick. I'm going to go by what I see in the corner or kind of on my screen. So again, it's just a quick sharing because I really liked some of the inputs that you all shared about that. So Scott, AKA Sky Bear, did you want to start with that? Why that chapter? What was a sweet part for you in that?
Why my chapter? Why I picked the subject I picked and stuff like that. The whole art of connecting with nature. I mean, I'm just trying to keep with the title, and my ADHD Asperger's spectrum head said, well, talk about your method. So that was my method of how when I finally kind of finished reading all the books I was reading to have my transformation to get out of the whole, Mormon system that I had grown up in. I decided to be methodical, be the way you are when you have to go practice a song for a gig, or 56 songs for a gig. How do you go about doing that? Well, I check my parameters, try to figure out what equipment I'm working with and do all this. So I changed it to the being aware of my surroundings and
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know Scott, so his chapter was on through musician's lens, basically. And so when we did the one-on-one interview here a week or so ago, you were doing it in your, I'm not sure if you call it your recording studio or what you call that. Your
yeah, I was
jam area?
downstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which a bunch of it's taken apart and all in a big pile to go in the truck after this. So
Yeah, so it was great. So it was kind of, I mean, I love what, again, for me, Scott, what was so cool about your chapter was again, I don't experience, I don't use my auditory senses so much in nature. I mean, I do, but not, it's your primary, it seems. And then you fill everything else in with the other senses. And that was really rich kind of having that experience. So thank you, my friend, for sharing that piece. And thank you for interviewing with me. As crazy as it was a hoot.
yeah, I'm glad I could do it. And I'm glad I can help with this. It's
Right
an
on.
honor and a privilege to see this screen full of high achievers. And for me to be one of them is kind of a real honor.
So thank you, my friend. Let's move on to Ashra. You're the next on my screen here. Tell me about why you chose your story there, and why it was important to you.
Yeah, I think I just really wanted to approach it through the 4 main quarters and the elementals that I work with in several traditions. And so sort of 4 different stories emerged through each of those gateways. And there's talk in there about my work with the Earth Spirit community. There's talk in there about fire walking, the power of birds showing up after the death in some family members, and then the power of water and water rituals. So each of those just held something really specific for me. And that just felt like the best way to approach it, because that's how I approach nature, is through those different quarters.
Yeah, so through the elementals with that, and I really, as we talked, and there was really a sweet conversation between you and I in our interview about the air element, and talking about what happened with your daughter and with yourself as well when each of your grandfathers passed, and how the air element came in and let you both know at each of those, probably 30 years separated or 20 years separated in time, kind of had the same experiences there, which was really very, very sweet. So thank you for that, Ashra.
Yeah, that was really, really sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. My wife, Ariana Platten, you are up, and she has refused to interview with me. I'm not sure what that means. I don't know how to take that. Is that a good thing, a bad thing? Should I take notes on that? How are you this morning, love? And tell me why your story.
I am good. And just to correct the record, I did not refuse. I said someone should interview you. Maybe I will do that. So that may still happen.
Did say that. That is true, but we also
that.
had on the schedule 2 different times me to interview you, and
I'm not going to argue with you about this in a public forum.
merely laying out just the facts, ma'am. I'm merely laying out the facts here, and
Yeah,
I'm doing it in a public forum to get it out there.
that's right. I wrote about one of my very best friends on the planet, who happens to be a tree, and about climbing up in her branches, and about the healing that took place at a difficult and challenging time in my life. And I don't think in connecting with nature, there's a better story for me than what it is to immerse yourself on that level, to actually really befriend and get to know and create long-term relationship with something in nature that we tend to walk by or notice for its beauty, but not communicate with or attempt relationship with. And I'm hopeful that as our readers look at this book, that's the thing they'll come to understand is possible, that we can more than interact occasionally, we can actually befriend and grow and learn from so many different living aspects of nature.
Yeah, thank you, love. And it was really sweet. We met, I guess it'll be 99, so 22 years ago or so. And it was and she was living in San Antonio, Texas. I was living in Colorado Springs at that time. And so we were 1,000 miles separated. And we just, one of our greatest connections was really through our conversations about how we did connect, or how we do connect in nature. and is like, oh, so you're talking to trees too. You're my kind of person. Let's tell me what Sue is telling you, and I'll tell you what True and several others of mine are telling me about different things going on. So it was really a dear connection, and I had the pleasure of meeting Sue. So that was a really sweet opportunity with that. So thank you, love. We've got Sherry on board here. So Sherry, good morning. Yeah, it's morning your time. I've had to think of where everybody is here. So it's morning your time. You're muted there, Sherry.
Hello.
Good morning. So what we're doing is just going round robin here, just taking a minute or two or a couple minutes here for each of the authors to tell a little bit about why they chose the chapter that they did in the book. So we're doing that. I am moving on to Kyle Gardner for Kyle, your chapter, and I'm going to ask you also about your practice, because I keep bringing it up because I just absolutely love it. The practice of no practice. So tell me a bit about your story and why that one again. I know why, because we talked about it the other day, but your other cohorts here don't. So
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Total absorption was kind of a singular story of a number of different trips I'd made out to the California coast, and not growing up near the coast and only kind of spending a lot of time there as more of an adult. It really just hit home as kind of the ultimate place for connecting with nature. I mean, the landforms, the life forms, the energy dynamic of the waves and the tide pools. It spoke to me at such a deep level that it was very meaningful. And so I had used a lot of that information for a chapter in a book that I had self-published some years ago, and kind of made some adaptations to that for the art of connecting, because that really speaks to me.
yeah, thanks, Kyle. And if you don't mind, just a quick 30 seconds on why you're practice and non-practice. I had to kind of fight you on that, because you really did. It's like, well, I don't really have a practice. It's like, tell me more, just throw it out there.
Yeah, compared to a lot of the folks who made contributions to the book, I mean, you've got real practitioners in the book, and I am miles from that. My practice is just to get out and walk and get engaged in sort of a walking meditation, I guess, when I'm out there. So compared to a lot of the folks in the book, my level of practice, I have very little self-discipline when it comes to things like that. So I guess the non-practice is I didn't really have a specific set of steps other than to just dive in, get out there, and try to go beyond any sort of barriers that might exist, physical, human barriers between myself and nature. So that was kind of the essence of that non-practice approach.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
And I'm working on it. It's a lifelong thing, and I've been a nature guy for my whole life, and it's still something that I hope to be developing as time goes by.
Yeah, thank you. And I think every one of us in here and in the book would say the same kind of things, is that we're always growing, learning, as we change, then what's asked of us and what we're able to explore within ourselves changes too, right? And that means our connection to nature changes a bit. And so I would say that you have I think that's, again, when we're talking about the art here, your approach is no more or less, better or less than any of our other approaches. It's just different. And I really love the non-approach going, I can't tell you what's going to happen for you when you're out here, but if you take the time to really integrate and really show up and really be open, something will happen. What that something is going to be unique and relational to you and the holy, the sacred. And I can't tell you what that's going to be, because it's different for each of us. I just love that no practice.
I would just add this too, that even though I tend to go to the same places again and again, they're never the same. There are seasonal differences, there are weather differences, there are things that you notice more detail even something significant that maybe you missed the time before. So I think that's part of the practice as well, to be open to going to the same place, but seeing it different every single time, or being different every single time going out there.
Right, because we're showing up different every single time as well. And
Right.
so yeah, I like that. And several of you, in our interviews talked about home, talked about planting root or sending down roots and so forth, and what that was like. And that, when you bring that up, Kyle, it kind of brings it in my head, is like, yeah, it's about sinking roots into one place and really connecting with that place and what it means to you, and just showing up and seeing over and over again how it's always changing and evolving, and has different information to bring as we change. So yeah, that's great. So thank you, my friend. And I think that you and Steve might have something in common with your connection with water and the ocean, stuff with that. And if you guys weren't on kind of opposite coast, it might be well worth your times to go and connect.
Yeah.
Who knows what the future may bring there. So thank you again for that. Miss Mary Love, Big Island, Hawaii. Talk to me about your story, about why you chose that. And thank you for showing up early. I know it's a little bit 7 o'clock in the morning. I guess it's about 7:15 now.
I was up.
You were up, all right. On a holiday weekend. Go ahead and share, my friend.
Well, here I am out here on the Big Island of Hawaii, and my chapter was about my relationship with Pele, the goddess of the volcano, because I happen to have chosen to live on the side of the most active volcano on Earth.
I followed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
followed
an
that
ongoing
whole
thing.
scenario.
Yes, it's not on and off. It's like constant, and that's fine. But being having my relationship with nature beginning as a little girl in Iowa, and spending about 20 years there, and then moving to the Rocky Mountains in Colorado for more than 20 years, and raising my kids there, and having a unique shift from the agricultural to the Rocky Mountains, the foundations, that kind of grounding, to a rock in the middle of the Pacific. And first I was on Oahu, then I came to the Big Island only 7 years ago. And at the time I wrote that chapter, I didn't realize it, but we had just experienced a significant lava flow that was about to cut off my area, my village, take my town, like everything.
Old town.
And turns out that was just a fire drill. That was nothing compared to what happened in 2018, which was the epic volcanic episode of at least the past 200 years. And about 3 miles, as the crow flies from my home, an entire rift zone opened up for about 18 miles, took out about 1,000 homes. No one perished. Thankfully, because of the nature of the Pacific Rim lava eruptions, it's very slow. The funny thing to say is walk for your life,
Walk
So-
to safety.
Yeah, right. But usually we walk to it first and spend time with it and watch it in all of her amazing forms and features.
Get your
So-
selfies.
Yes, all of that stuff. And that was truly, the 2018 was the one that turned me inside out, and led me to a place where it's much more in sync with the true Hawaiian culture, which is very Native American in that we don't own anything. I bought a house. I think I'm retiring here, whatever, the Aina, the earth, the land itself, it is not possessed by anyone. It doesn't matter what bank papers say or anything else. So it was very much about learning my purpose, my community service, why I'm here, how I can express myself, and that just it kind of balanced out all the elementals, because I spend more time in the other elements than fire. I go out of my way to spend time with fire, and it's always been the one that freaked me out the most. So I got it to the max, and here I am, very thankful. My house survived. many of my friends lost everything. So I kind of had that survivor's guilt, like, oh, well, it wasn't so bad. It wasn't so bad. But on the other side of that, feeling really grateful and healed and all the better for such an epic experience in my life. I would write a tremendously different chapter now if I could, but it's fine. The precursor was fine.
Yeah, thank you. And what I really loved about what we shared in our interview, Mary, was there was a real transformation that happened, right? From a transformation within you to open up to a different kind of way of moving through life with,
Totally.
because it became a surrender going, like you said, you welcome Pele because you're on her being, right? And it's temporary. It's always temporary. So as long as that she allows you all to stay there, then that's where it is. And when if she comes in and your house is the next one to go, you bless it with great love and recognize that it was a temporary stasis and state of being there. And I love the place where you guys have come. It's really in interesting ways where we have those difficult times. It tends to build community, and you guys have a really strong community because of those situations that have happened. So, and that's really that silver lining, I think, that always comes if we're paying attention and willing to be open. So I really loved that conversation we had.
Lava is also a rare thing of two of the four elements. It's earth on fire.
That's true. That's true. I think
So you got half the elements racing towards you at 1 mile an hour.
Right.
Perfect. Mr. Steve, my friend, talk to me about your chapter. Again, there's every one of these are so different, and I know several of you have said that you went through and read the book over again with things, and I really love, when it comes to yours, Steve, when we were talking about magic, and I'm thinking of my own minds because of some of the stuff I've done ceremonially and so forth. I'm thinking, oh, where's he going to go with this? And it's like, oh, you took this a way different direction than what I ever thought you would take this, and yet there's such truth and depth to what you're sharing. So if you will, my friend.
Yeah, well, I'm a recently retired college biology professor. I spent, 3.5 decades teaching natural history. And I wrote my chapter not about any magic that transforms me, but the magic of transformation in my students around bird banding. So for every fall for 35 years, I had my students out there morning after morning, week after week. And the transformation in them, the life-altering transformation in the paths that they chose to follow and their relationship with the more than just human world, for many of them began the first time they held a live bird in their hand and then let it go again. So the chapter really just describes that feeling of me being out there to greet them and feeling them come through the field to start the day.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I would challenge you that you weren't transformed by that situation as well, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, sure.
What I really liked about what you talked about is that, and it's kind of what Kyle had mentioned there, is that doing the same, you don't just go and do, one 2-hour session of bird banding and then you move on to the next thing. You do weeks worth of bird banding. So it's not like the students are coming and getting a taste, a flavor or something, and are moving on to doing something else. And so I love what you had said is like, no, we're digging in. We go full, we go on this for weeks, right? Weeks, 6 weeks or something like that?
6 weeks. Yeah, we catch the whole thing is timed to catch the seasonal migrants leaving for the summer and heading south. And also a lot of the permanent residents that are getting ready for the winter. So they're trying to fatten up, but they get to see the waves of birds moving down from Canada down through the mid-Atlantic states and ultimately to South America. So it's, they're witnessing, but they're also being transformed by the act of witnessing.
Yeah, what I like about that, Steve, is that for 6 weeks, that by that time, they understand what the expectations are, and they start seeing things and experiencing them in a much different way than if it was just a touch and go. And I hadn't thought about that when you said that. It's like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's really, I think that's rare in the collegiate realm that students get that kind of immersion in one area, one focus, because we're so, I think I'll use the word focus again. We're so focused on giving them all kinds of flavors so that they can, check those boxes off.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how unique or not unique it is, but I know that my students really enjoyed it. I mean, we did a lot of other things in the class as well. It was a more general natural history course. So we spent a lot of time with fish and amphibians and mammals, not so much with reptiles because there aren't that many in Vermont where I was at the time. But there's something about that bird banding that made that to be the hallmark of the class. And when students were talking to prospective students about it, they would always say, "Oh yeah, there's this bird banding class." It's like, no, there's more than that, but they'll love the birds, nothing but love.
That's great. Thank you so much, Steve. And Peg, I think you're the last one we've got here. Tell us about your story. Yours is, again, way different than a lot of the stories are. And we talked a bit about that, but I love that you're coming from where so many of our passions are with our pets, right? With those beloveds that walk side by side and who are oftentimes not nearly as judgmental as humans are, and withholding of love when they feel slighted. A dog rarely ever does that. Cats could care less most times, but they're their own creature, which I love them. So Peg, tell us about your story.
Well, I went back and forth. I thought about writing about Alaska because we have a second home in Homer, Alaska, and you just live in the natural history realm every day. Like I said to Mark, I enjoyed how the news was all about the tides, the daily news. The big issue was always the tides and the fish report and animal issues. So anyhow, I decided in looking at the matrix for writing the book, I decided I wanted to write something that would help readers feel that they could too get out in nature if they were not a nature person before or they wanted to. So I looked for something that I did in my daily life. So I talked about going to the dog park every day. And I rescued a big old dog who was half bloodhound, half black lab. And so I told this story of this dog taking him to the dog park every day, and told the last year of his life when he got bone cancer. So we just took what happens at the dog park, what we feel about it, why we go there, what we observe in other people and animals, and how it links us to the past and the present and the future. And I love this dog to death, so I was happy. I have chaplaincy background, so I was happy to deal with the issue of bereavement and how it hits people differently for animals and humans, but it's really the same walk through the loss of a love. So I dealt with that issue, and in the process, I really realized I'm a journalist by background, so I always was observational, but this brought me to a whole new level. And I'm thinking, gosh, I should have been a naturalist. That would have really been my field, bringing together observation and animals. So in the process, I moved my computer upstairs. I had it in a dungeon-like area downstairs, and I moved it into the front window of our home in Manitou. And it's incredible what I've watched among the animals. It's like Disney out on the front lawn. I've seen fawns touching magpies just out of curiosity. I've seen magpies riding on the backs of the different animals. They're nothing you won't see. So anyhow, I wanted that personal connection in my story, and it was the second chapter. The first chapter Joe U. Vegas wrote about upstate New York, and I think people don't realize how much of a natural environment upstate New York is, how much you can enjoy being a child there and being outdoors from morning to night. So that's what I was looking for, and I hope that's the effect it had, just showing people you don't have to do any big deal. You can just find this in your daily life. It is getting harder. I used to take my dogs to Higginbottom Flats to walk, and then it became like a storage unit place. So that's when I switched over to the dog park, and I just think we have a world-class place here. Hills, water, everything you would want in a really big space. A lot of dog parks are just a patch of arid land with no water. And so this is a remarkable place, and remarkable things happen every day, including life and death.
Yeah.
So that's my story.
Well, thank you, Peg. I had to laugh because when I asked Peg in our interview, I was like, well, why this story? She says, well, I actually wrote 3 stories. And it's like, of course you did, Peg. Of course you wrote 3 stories instead of just going with 1. And then you looked at them back and forth and chose whichever one fit the scene. But what I really love about writing about your connection with dogs and looking kind of through a different lens and observing how they move through the dog park is that some of our chapters can be a little esoteric, I guess would be the word, in nature. And so it can be hard for people who are just entering or considering doing some of this work to even go, that's just either total make-believe or there's no way I can do that, right? And what I love about your chapter, and again about our book, is that your story about dogs, pretty much everybody or many of us can understand that and go, oh, it's a gateway to going, wow, okay, well, we're talking about dogs, and Joe U. Vegas was talking about growing up in upstate New York and bees. Well, so those 2 are safe, to talk about. So maybe I'll look further in here and go deeper and see how I start pressing or pushing up against my own boundaries and checking out some of these things. So I really appreciate that more. I put it in the physical realm of stuff because for me, it was the physical aspect of being physically walking with your dogs and physically observing those. I really love. So
I was talking about doing it during the pandemic, and the same groups that were arguing on the outside were arguing at the dog park, and mask wearing and social distancing, and it's a microcosm of the outer world. It really is. There's life and death and illness.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of death, Duke did pass. That was a dog that you were writing about for the most part, and that's why the chapter's named Duke. And he passed as we were coming up, to the 5-year point, or I guess right before we published, right, the first time, because Duke had already passed at that time. Hence the collar without him in it. Yeah. And speaking of death, one of our own in the past 5 years, Scott Olson, who wrote the chapter on dolphins and whales, he has since passed. I think it was 2018, so 3 years ago. And so we never know, right? We never know when our time is up. And so for me, it's these kind of things where we're able to connect in and share and create, right? Being that creative force of sharing with each other and being real and connected in. I think that's the real part of life that's important, creating relationships and thinking about what's really important to us, especially as some of us get a little bit older here. I'm looking at my beard and stuff. So
All of us are getting older.
what? I don't know. On the inside, I'm kind of sometimes getting younger, and that might be dangerous. So yeah, Sky Bear too. But
Gray hair is earned, kids.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I
I
should
love
clarify.
the fact that these kids are trying to look like us. That makes us hip. Okay.
Good
I should
point.
clarify. I had a second book after this, and that's where I wrote about the dog's death. But
Yeah.
this book was the opening, just talking about the dog park and what it means to animals and to get out every day and to be free. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Now that's true for us, right? To get out every day and be free also. And that's a great metaphor for us to consider. How do we strap ourselves down to computers or other things or tasks or work things or demands that we somewhat place on ourselves more than anything else placing it on us. So, and you know, for me, I mean, this is kind of, I mean, there's not a whole lot more to chat about here. I just wanted to get us to group together here.
And this is a great chance for us to let people know about this book. And right now, coming out of the pandemic, people need what's in that book right now. They need to know how to get out and have a different experience, because the world is not the same as it was a year ago. And the stuff that you guys shared is so potent and has so much potential for bringing people to a new part of themselves, that this is not an accidental, but a very planned and purposeful relaunch.
Part of the
So-
awakening process.
So I really want to encourage you to let people know that this book is available at a really great price, and that if they're trying to figure out how to move through, now is this is a really good tool for them.
Like I said, it has been absolutely the most connecting thing I've done in quite some time, with just talking with each of you for an hour, and it's been really quite special. I really didn't anticipate that it would be so meaningful to me to go through this, and so I appreciate that. Because I was doing this whole segment for 3.5 years on Facebook, a daily post of When Nature Speaks, and I was taking so many photos and listening to what nature was sharing with me and putting them out there. So I've got like 12 or 1,300 Facebook posts on that site. And so for me, it was like, if I'm going to do this book, I'm going to include the beauty of nature in it. I'm not just going to talk about it. That's part of the art for me as well. It was really important for me to do that and to share it. All right, my friends. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time again with this and kind of getting the relaunch out. It feels good. I mean, it really does feel good. I feel confident we're going to get some good traction on it and have a lot of fun with it. And again, it comes back to, for me, when I wrote this, when I did this, you know, the first time around, and I think I shared it, Kyle, with when I was talking with you and Dean and David there, is that I had these grandiose ideas of selling millions of copies, you know, that this is going to be the thing that just, you know, crushes it out there. Then I went through a few courses on writing and so forth, and they said, you know, that's like 0.001% of any books ever make more than 50,000 copies. It's just almost non-existent. You don't write the book to make money. You write the book to get your kind of your calling card out there and to do that. And so at first it was kind of deflating with that. And then it's like, when I was listening to Spirit's like, well, what is enough for you? What is enough, right? What is enough is what, if I made a change, if this book changed one person's life, would that be enough? And that's like, yeah, it really would. And I've really sat with that and just kind of going, yep. So wherever that one person is, then that's enough. And again, this time out, you know, if we can make a change or a difference in one person's life who picks up this book and goes, oh my gosh, this gives me some ideas that I never knew about. That I love nature and had no idea that we could go deeper in there, because I'm not of an indigenous background, right? So I don't have the rights or whatever it might be. This book gives everybody the tools to jump in there and do that themselves, and I really love that. So thank you for each of you for being contributing authors and for giving your heart and soul and spirits to this, and look forward to seeing kind of how it unfolds.
Thanks for your work on that. Originally, that was a great idea, and I think the vision is even more important today than it was when you launched the thing over 5 years ago. So your work is much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Kyle. I really appreciate that as well. All right, my friends. Have a great rest of your day and holiday weekend for those of you who are on holiday. Mary, you're maybe permanent holiday. I'm not sure that's the right word. You're
Pretty much.
on the Big Island.
I'm just kicking it. Yeah.
Right. All right, my
It's
friend.
so good to see all you guys.
Right? Isn't this
you
nice?
too, you too.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, it's the space age fire circle kind
Love
of.
it. Love it.
Right. All right, my friends. Have a great rest of your day.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha. Bye, you guys. Love you all.
Love you too, man.